Hello cats and kittens, welcome to yet another video about AI on YouTube. It was only a matter of time till I made one. Everyone's got an opinion on this subject. Although I'm not going to try and convince you to like it or dislike it. I'm making a video for people who already don't like it and are just as sick of hearing about it as I am. On September the 22nd of this nightmarish year of 2025, a study was released, a peer-reviewed study full of complex language that I, a simpleton, barely understood, titled Evaluating Artificial Intelligence Use and Its Psychological Correlates via Months of Web Browsing Data. And its conclusion was, essentially, that people don't use AI as much as we think they do, but those that do tend towards having more dark personality traits. That they score much higher on measures of Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy compared to their peers. Which is a quote from the article about this paper, because the actual paper is paywalled, and last time I paid for a subscription to something to get access to something paywalled for a video, it was the Telegraph newspaper, and they try to make you call their number in business hours for the pleasure of begging to allow you to cancel it. I don't want to go through that again. As for how I feel about the article on the study, even though this study basically confirms what I believed already, it still sounds to me like it's probably rubbish. I don't particularly trust the study because its data is from participants sending in their own web searching history, which is a weird group of people. The kind of person willing to send in their web browsing history to be looked at has to, at a baseline, be kind of psychotic, right? I think sharing your web browser history should be added to the dark triad to make it a dark quad. But to give it some credibility, there was another similar study from July, only this time was from China, titled Dark Personality Traits Are Associated with Academic Misconduct, Frustration, Negative Thinking, and Generative AI Use Habits, the case of the Sichuan Art Universities, which had essentially the same conclusion, so it does make me a bit more convinced. But whether the studies are good or not, I don't need studies to tell me any of that, because I've met the people. So this AI craze that we're dealing with right now, it just reveals how awful everyone really is. Like, the tech does a lot of things, but mainly it highlights how indifferent, uncaring, and mean-spirited and downright annoying people can be. So if you look at this incredibly scientific chart that I'm going to put on the screen now, you can see that there was once a baseline rate of annoying conversations. But then when Bitcoin came out, the rate of annoying conversations increased 250%, and then jumped a further 50% when NFTs started. And since ChatGPT came out, real data, obviously, annoying conversations jumped up 350%. This is very real data, and its source is Generative AI, annoying to talk about. So it's a pity that that's almost all anyone wants to talk about. It reminds me of the criticisms of Deus Ex Human Revolution. It's a game where one of the criticisms was that it was unrealistic in the story that everyone would just be talking about human augmentation all the time. And it truly is what most of the conversations and characters in that game talk about. That game came out in 2011. Now, fast forward to 2025, and AI is almost all anyone is ever talking about, and so as it turns out, the game was absolutely correct. A conversation with someone who just loves AI is torturous. It makes me revert to my childhood Catholicism. Like, I fear I must genuinely be in hell. Now, is this 40 or 50-year-old child showing me a tediously generated image actually a punishment sent to me by God for dressing up like a woman on the internet? Feels like a punishment. It's like talking to children. They want to show you the thing and let's make sure we surround this word with the most sarcastic of quotes, made, and they really seem to expect you're going to be super impressed. But what are those babies expecting you to say? Wow, that's so cool. Amazing! I'm gonna put that right on the fridge because you're so talented and special for making that. You're my special boy. Such a good boy. But instead you say, because you don't want to engage any further. Because if you engage further, that's inviting yourself into an annoying conversation. And you don't want to be a statistic. But beyond just being annoying, any illusion I may have had that people are on the whole good has been shattered beyond repair by the people I've witnessed using this technology. Now, I know that it's a comforting thought to believe that the users of generative AI are the exceptions, as the study says, because you want to think that it's a small group of people who are into using that garbage and that most of us see it as trash that we want to get rid of, that clogs up our social media feeds. But we all have to confront the sad truth someday. Most people like it, and most people are using it. I don't believe the American study's conclusion that not many are using it, not for a second, especially because they're checking web browser history only, when everyone that I'm seeing using this stuff are using them in apps or programs which don't leave a browser trail, thus putting that entire study into question. It might also be comforting to think that people are using it because they don't know how harmful it can be, that they use it thinking that it's just some app like any other. But don't get too comfortable, because they all know that it's harmful. They all know. They're all very aware of where the data that powers those systems comes from. They're all aware of the heavy cost of resources like water and electricity that it takes to run that. They know how much it aids in making things more expensive for just regular people who live anywhere near a data center. They know, but they don't care about any of that. They just think it's fun and cool, or that they can get something out of it for themselves, that it's useful for them, and they don't suffer the consequences of it, so why care? But not caring doesn't explain it fully, does it? There's also, to make it somehow even worse, a glee in so many of these people when they talk about how this technology will be ruining careers and lives. I've listened to so many in the many annoying conversations that I haven't managed to escape. So many people who have been happy about the idea of it taking away people's jobs. Now, regardless of whether the tech can actually do that or not, that's very disheartening, isn't it? To hear so many people that I've met be happy or joking about the idea, like it's a fun laugh of it ruining lives. So the idea that there will be people who can't compete and will suffer because of it, people whose careers won't exist anymore, of people who don't have entry-level positions to start careers with, of people who have studied things like art or something else that these people perceive as now being replaceable. And these generative AI evangelists speak of these things like they're celebrating the potential misery of others, gleefully. I've seen parents say it to their children about how they won't be able to do what they studied anymore, laughing at their own children, the ones they made. They seem to think they're teasing them and that's funny. But if their children are truly worried about that, so maybe they shouldn't be doing that. Because whether you like generative AI or not, it is incredibly weird that so many people can get so excited, so happy, not just over the technology, but at the idea of that technology ruining lives. A relevant side note, many of these people are also always so bent out of shape at the idea of immigrants taking their jobs or refugees taking jobs away from hard-working Australians. But suddenly a machine's doing it and it's just funny. I see how it is. Of course, for most of those people too, if they're right about the technology being capable of taking all those roles, they're also on the chopping block for careers at the digital hands of that same technology. They just don't think it's them yet. So I have no patience with the people who make kids and still want to use destructive technology like this. People who make kids and do things that hurt them, who make children and don't make even a token effort to care for the world that their kids are going to have to grow up in. Now, if you don't care about the future and how livable the world will be, don't have children, because that's investing in a world that you're not invested in. So I've been specific when I've been saying generative AI, because another annoying conversation piece is the claim you use AI in things too, and then they point to some of the other uses of machine learning that you do use. And it's true. Many things in our devices use machine learning to accomplish their tasks. Spell check, translation, speech recognition, image upscaling and anti-aliasing, voice isolation, along with many other mainly innocuous usages. And people who want to support having a computer make a video for them will try and confuse you with that argument. See, you use AI as well, so you can't say it's bad. But there's a real big difference between generating 10-second videos and using speech recognition to automatically scroll a teleprompter, as I'm doing right now, And there's also a massive difference between generative AI and talking to a chatbot and asking it questions you could just search yourself, and using something like DLSS on your graphics card options to upscale and anti-alias an image while using less power. That's something I do, and I would not consider it anything close to using a chatbot. But a consequence of calling it all AI now, most people think it's the same, even though it's not. And you know it's not, but choosing to argue with a person who sees these two things as the same, or pretending to see those two things as the same, it's like whipping yourself. Don't whip yourself. That's also why it suddenly seems like the AI programs you hate are doing all of the tasks that were already happening. For example, Twitter now credits their new AI tool Grok for the automatic translations, but there was already translations there for a long time. It is probably the same one that it always was, but now it's just rebranded. So it's true that machine learning would have done the translation, but it would have nothing to do with this new generative AI craze. Of course, the people who want to argue that all AI is the same don't tend to make the same connection between other uses of AI and their usage, because it's not like it's just generative AI that's bad, right? Because we're entering the cyberpunk dystopia stage of civilization. There's plenty of other harmful uses of machine learning out there that you can get upset by. So the use of computer vision, it seems innocent enough, but it is perfect to be able to track and identify people in security footage, especially since it can be matched with Real ID. That is becoming mandatory in online spaces, meaning you could be surveilled at every turn, right? Real life self linked to your digital self, and you will long for the days where the internet was trapped in a beige box. There are forms of automated surveillance already being rolled out, including that system that infamously automatically summoned armed police on a black teenager at an American school after mistaking a bag of Doritos he was holding for a gun. And because the only groups that can make technology like this are people who can afford to pay for massive data centers with massive processing, massive energy and resource requirements, it means by necessity it's going to be the extremely wealthy, the obscenely rich who control the technology, even if they don't actually seem to be able to afford to pay for anything and end up resorting to weird financial tricks. And so everything that technology does, images it makes, videos it makes, text you find through the chatbots, or the standards it uses to judge whether to send armed police after someone it sees on a camera, it's all going to be filtered through the systems controlled by them. Not some unknowable them you might hear from a conspiracy theorist from the X-Files, but a very public them, with a name and a face you can point to. A billionaire who runs a tech company, a billionaire who buys off politicians, billionaires with a very obvious and unapologetic power over you and what you see and what you hear and what you think. And that's another reason these evangelists of that technology are so very annoying, because it's not some wonderful tech that's going to transform our lives in positive, wonderful ways. The talking computer that makes pictures and videos is not really the point. The point of it, the obvious goal of all those systems, and the real draw for those very powerful, is that it's just a way more effective way to make people believe things that are a benefit to the owners of the tech. It's a more effective way of surveilling everyone. Their activities on not just the internet, but in the real world, with cameras watching your every move, tagging people and tracing those in real time using computer vision, and matching those people and their movements with their actions online with automations you don't know are happening and can't stop, so there's no way you can escape it, that you're trapped in an inescapable system that you don't understand and have no power over, but it has power over you, which they'll collect in a big database, probably to have that information leaked by a hacker at some point. And despite being in that cyberpunk dystopia that we're all been waiting for, we don't even get cool fun clothes. Our clothes are still really boring. If I go to a men's store, it's just plain colours in the same clothes it's been for decades now. Actually, I think it's got less colour than ever. And so if we have to live in a cyberpunk hell, and it seems we do, could we at least have the cyberpunk fashion as well? It's very disappointing to have one and not the other. All of the bad and none of the good. Okay, I should lighten the mood with a funny story. I got a little bit too dark there. So, a lot of people believe that this tech is reliable and trustworthy and that they are actually the smart ones using it. Specifically, I know someone who was trying to show off a video they made using one of these systems with a query something like "Culture of warrior women that history forgot." So, as expected, it made up some generic warrior woman who just sort of stood there idling. But the woman who proudly and unironically entered that into the plagiarism machine said it was real history and that people didn't know about it because it was lost history. Was this a misguided attempt at feminism? I don't know, but this woman has this idea that knowledge about this culture of warrior women has been entirely lost with no archaeological evidence. But if you tell this AI video generator that it cannot lie, then whatever it shows you is the truth that's been hidden this whole time. That's not an exaggeration. When my partner said, well, it could have just made it up, quite rightly, the response she got back was, no, it couldn't, because I told it that it can't make anything up, so it has to tell the truth. And at that moment, I could feel my girlfriend squeezing my hand tightly, which is her way of saying, shut up, Peter. Because this woman thinks, she believes, that if you ask it not to lie, it has to tell the truth. What did she think it was, an undercover cop? Does she believe that if you tell the machine to not lie, that it will, even without any research done on the subject, or any physical evidence, or dig sites, or writing, or spoken record, or anything else, be able to divine the truth on any subject whatsoever? Doesn't make any sense, but it is, at least in this specific case, very funny. Which is a nice break from the usual, because normally dealing with the AI evangelists is only annoying and depressing, and I'm just so tired of it. I don't have the energy to deal with them, so I tend to avoid those conversations as much as possible. I'm often told at work, actually, that I should be using the generative AI tools because everyone else is going to be, and it's going to be good for my career, and that's probably all true. Right? It's probably all true, but I can't bring myself to use it. I feel like I'm giving up too much of myself. Like that's compromising who I am too much, and I can't really do it. But it's true what they're saying to me. That it's true that if I just compromised my morals and ethics, that I could go further. But I don't want to. So those studies on people who use AI having the dark personality traits, of course they do. People who think about the future or the environment, people who feel guilt or shame for harming others, could they use that technology if they are aware of how destructive it was? Likely not. But unfortunately, the people who don't excitedly network with industry heavyweights about how exciting every new thing is are people who do not make as many connections and who do not get as far. Case in point, who do not make as much money and who do not have as much power and thus don't really make an impact on the world, and thus their opinion, my opinion, doesn't really mean anything to anyone. But do I really think that acting the part and following along with whatever new and exciting thing is to CEOs to attempt to gain some money and power would lead to me gaining a bunch of influence and being able to change the world? Probably not, even if I could keep up the facade for long enough. But I can't do it. I can't pretend to like it, I can't act like it's exciting, and I'm gonna be left behind. And gladly, because with or without me, we are digging deeper down into our dystopia. Systems designed to replace humanity in everything that humans can do, on top of the extension of the surveillance state, with proof of ID needed for everything, constant tracking and monitoring with content filtered by and created by machines to further the agendas of the billionaires who truly rule over us. And I don't want to be contributing to it, or at least contribute to it as little as possible. It might happen anyway, it probably will, but when the Amazon delivery droids show up at the door of our pod apartments with the mandatory dose of Elon Musk semen that all fertile women must legally get impregnated by, as monitored by the Palantir-powered surveillance cameras in every room, while everyone else must work in the mines the entire day to dig up rare earth elements to power the machines, while an endless stream of AI-generated short-form videos is broadcast into your Meta-branded submission goggles, I'll at least be able to tell people, I told you so. What little comfort that'll be as the CEO's children whip us for their own sick perversions. Now that's nepotism. Look, that might be an extremely dark vision of the future, and obviously not really what'll happen. I mean, have you seen him recently? There's no way that Elon can still come. But there's more surveillance than ever. And there are less companies than ever, and each one controls more than ever. The wealthier are wealthier than ever, and those who aren't have less power than ever. It truly is turning into the world of Deus Ex. How could anyone not see? And maybe, just maybe, I could at least tolerate it. If not for everyone else being so infuriating about it. So at the very least, we could all bond together, just us chooms commiserating over how screwed everything is, as we all suffer together. Instead, I am constantly being told how exciting the AI age is, and how I have to join in or be left behind by people who won't be any better off than me. But it's not the AI age, it's the manipulation age, because everything you see, everything you think, the emotions you have, all manipulated by machine learning systems to get the right reaction to things. Now, there was a time when finding out that Facebook was manipulating what it showed us to change our emotions was considered newsworthy, and we were all rightly upset by that. But now I'm having people tell me how excited they are for it as they sign up willingly. So it doesn't matter whether AI is a bubble or not. The internet was part of a bubble, and that's still here. The thing that matters is that AI is doing exactly what the wealthy want it to. Pandora's box was opened, and out came all of this eldritch horror. But still, if you look inside, if you reach in and you feel around the bottom of Pandora's box, that's despair. It's all that's left in there. Close the damn box.